Hey everyone, this is George Couros. Welcome back to another episode of the Innovator's Mindset podcast. And I am recording this right before I take my two daughters to the new Wicked movie. We have been excited for this for a while. I can't even remember the last time I got tickets for a movie on the release date, but my two daughters are so excited. And the ability to have time with them to share that experience, to just enjoy that is something I'm really looking forward to. And it kind of goes to the topic of what I'm going to talk about today is really how you value someone else's time and how much that actually shows you. And if you read my emails, my newsletter or my blog, you might notice that in the last 2 weeks or so, I was actually at the gym and someone broke into my locker, which, there's a lock on it. They cut the lock off and actually stole my wallet. And what's been interesting about this, there was some cash in there. It's probably like $100 or something like that. And they took that. But they also took basically all my credit cards, my ID, everything. And if they stole the money, that would have sucked. That would have sucked. You never want to lose money that you've earned. I get it. But that's not the worst part of it. It's all the time I've had to spend canceling credit cards, getting new licenses, making appointments, do all this stuff. And it shows you how valuable time is and how much you really appreciate it. And once you spend it, you can't get it back. And on that day that my wallet was stolen, my niece was coming to visit with her baby. And I couldn't spend as much time with her as I wanted because I was doing all the things I just said I had to do, which was so frustrating. So the money is one thing, but time you just can't ever get back. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, and by the way, it's Thanksgiving in the US. Happy Thanksgiving if you're listening to this. And so maybe it's something I just want to share with you. And I'll get to a more positive note by the end of this, I promise. But I wrote this in a recent blog post that if you want to stand out, do what you say you'll do. If you want to excel, go beyond what you said you would deliver. And it's something that I think about all the time is that when you show up for people, it really says something about you. And I'm on a plane with someone I don't know. And interestingly enough, we both realized that we're in the US and we're both Canadian. We both grew up in Canada. And one of the things he said to me that really stuck out to me, I asked him, we talked about our occupations, and I asked him what he does, and he said he's in construction. And it was interesting because I know it's a very tough market here in Orlando. And I asked him, how is that going? What he had said to me was he was doing great, that his company was doing exceptionally well because he was basically showing up on time. And if you've ever had any renovations in your house, if you've ever asked a company come in, for me, I don't know if it's just a me thing. They always seem to be late. That if and timelines are, often whatever they say, it's going to be later than what they say. And he said just the simple fact of him being on time has helped him create such a good reputation that he gets so much work because of it. And that's something that kind of stuck out to me. And it really shows you how much, people value your time. And, in the blog post where I wrote about this, if you say to me, hey, I would love to meet with you between, 3 and 3:30, right? So like 3 o'clock, we're gonna have a meeting, we're gonna have a 30-minute slot to connect. All of the things that I do to not prepare for that 3 o'clock meeting, but necessarily to kind of shape my day. Like there's certain things I can't do now because I have to be in front of a computer, Zoom, take a phone call, where I have to be 3 and 3:30. There's certain meetings I can't do. There's certain things I can't create. There's all this stuff that goes around it. And so when you show up late, or you sometimes, and this has happened to me so many times, you don't show up at all. It's not just that 30 minutes has been lost. It's all the things I had to do to kind of surround that 30 minutes. And I think people don't appreciate that, how much time you lose through that process. And listen, life happens, things happen. I understand that. But sometimes it's just like, oh, I was doing this. And I was listening to Eric Thomas. I think I'm not 100% sure it was him. He's a motivational speaker, but I think it was a video, and he was talking about, people say like, oh, I'm always late. That's just who I am, whatever. And he was having a conversation with somebody, and what he had said was, if I was to say to you at 5 a.m, if you show up tomorrow at this place at 5 a.m, I will give you $1 million. Would you show up? And they're like, of course I would. I'd be there like 10 minutes early. So it's actually not that you can't control your time. It's what you think is important. And that really stuck out to me because, if someone said to you, hey, like I'm chronically late, but I'll give you $1 million at 5, you'd be there early. You'd make sure you get there on time. So it's not about time as much as it's how much you prioritize someone else's time. And, that to me is kind of a bare minimum. But the second part of the statement was something that I thought about too. It said, and I shared this, if you want to excel, go beyond what you said you would deliver. Showing up on time is one thing. And I think that really, really matters to me. So I have this rule, and I share this in emails, that if you ever contact me about speaking, I will respond to you within 48 hours. My standard is 24, but I say 48 because if I say that, like, hey, something might happen, but if I'm responding immediately, that shows, like you're excited about this opportunity. And I never take any of those opportunities for granted. And I think the willingness to like contact somebody, be really quick. One of the things that people appreciate about me, I know this because I've heard it a million times, like, wow, it's so amazing that you responded right away, that it was like within seconds. And it's not some generic email. It is me doing that. And I know you can't always do this, right? When I was teaching, when I was a school administrator, totally different thing. You can't respond that quickly. But in my work, it does matter. That it does matter how quickly you respond to people, because they're probably reaching out to several people. And, I think it's kind of setting that tone that like, hey, here's the expectation that I'm setting for you, and just try to be above it. So if you're, for example, if you say, hey, I respond within 72 hours, maybe that's your comfort level. And then, say that, and then maybe do 48. Does that make sense? And I think that to me is something that I always try to set like a little bar. And here's something I do when I go to speaking events. I'll talk to the organizer typically the night before, just check in so they know I'm there. And I'll say something like, hey, I'll be there at 7:45 a.m. And so when I say that to them, I'm planning to be there at 7:30. And if I'm a little bit late for, from my 7:30, but I'm there at 7:35, I'm still 10 minutes earlier than what I told them. And they're always like, oh, what are you doing here? And I think a lot of times people are so expecting someone to be late, to not show up on time, that they're surprised when I'm a little bit earlier. And that's when you really start to stand out to people. And I learned this from a superintendent of mine. She would have meetings with me. She was just amazing. I really loved her. She really pushed me to a lot of the work that I'm doing today. And she would say to me like, hey, I'd love to meet with you tomorrow. Let's do lunch. I want to hear some of the stuff that you're going on in your school. And so she would say like, hey, let's meet here at 12 o'clock. And no matter how early I was, she was always there before me, and she was always sitting there waiting for me. And it just made me feel really appreciated. Here is my boss who is, always early, always showing up. And it's like, no matter how early I showed up, she seemed to be there before. And it was that feeling that she really respected my time and what I was doing, that it just made me feel appreciated. But then I've also had other bosses that always are showing up late, always in a flurry, always doing this thing. And they'll say, oh, I was meeting with this person. I was meeting with this person. And often the person was like someone more important than you. Maybe not in reality, but in their mind, it's like, oh, I had to spend extra time with this person because, they're more important, blah, 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 right? And they're doing that. And so sometimes they'll show you like, hey, if it's someone above me, I'll be early. If it's someone below me, what do I care? And then that permeates throughout the organization. And I just thought that when my superintendent would always show up early, it set an expectation for myself. I did the same for the people that I was their direct report. That I was their boss, for lack of a better term, that it showed how much I value their time. And so if I have meetings, I don't do them back to back to back. I always create a space, a buffer, so that if one goes over, I'm always early for the next. Because as I said, the last couple of weeks, I've spent so much time doing something that I hated doing, and it's taken away from other stuff. And you can't get that back. And I think that's one of the ways you really, really value people. And so when I ended this blog post, I reshared that standard. If you want to stand out, do what you say you'll do. If you want to excel, go beyond what you said you would deliver. And kind of the premise of this whole thing is that when you set your standard for yourself so incredibly higher, when you have these expectations of what you will do for others, and not always necessarily communicate it, but I think it's like that the notion of, under promise over deliver. That's what I really try to do. If you set the standard for yourself to be so high, you will often surpass the expectation of others. And I think that's in how we treat people. That's in, our ability to communicate and how we value other people's time. That really shows something. And I am going to go spend my time now that I've recorded this, and I have a commitment that every single Thursday, you're going to get a podcast from me. So I wanted to do this before, but I'm going to go enjoy a movie with my daughters. It's something we've been really looking for, and that time matters to me more than anything. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for all you do. Take care.